Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
If you are interested in serving on your local Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council, the deadline to apply is Friday, March 21st. The councils provide information and recommendations to the Federal Subsistence Board on subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing. For more information on the advisory councils and how to apply, call 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov. This message sponsored by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Good Friday, everyone. I'm meteorologist Dave Snyder with the National Weather Service. It's the 7th of March. As always, we encourage you to stay up to date with our latest weather information from our various sources around Alaska, including the Alaska Aviation Weather Unit, among many others, including your local Weather Service office that serves the Southeast Alaska region, the interior, and of course South Central and Southwest Alaska. You can do that by going to arh.noaa.gov or weather.gov/Alaska. Head to the weather info line at 800-472-0391. Find us on Twitter, on Facebook under U.S. National Weather Service Alaska, and on YouTube. During the afternoon, you get your daily afternoon map briefing. And of course, after this show on alaskapublic.org, our broadcast partner here, you can find the complete Alaska Weather Show and many others back in history if you like. Here's a look at the hazardous weather as of tonight across Southeast. If you haven't noticed yet, if you're watching from Southeast, chances are it's snowing where you are. A surge of wet and stormy weather moved its way northward overnight, and through the morning the snow has been spreading northward. However, hot on its heels is warm enough air to change some of that snow back into rain from south to north. So we're going to see that advance northward as we go through the weekend, and your dry days are over in case you've missed it. Places like Juneau, we're looking at, I want to say, around 11 days of dry weather in a row, which is not record setting, but it has been a little bit impressive as we head through the winter months here. So the wet weather's back, and you'll be dealing with more of a wet and soggy period going well into next week at this point. Let's take a run through some of the warnings and advisories at this point. We'll start with the area shaded here in red. That's across the northern parts of Southeast, including the Lynn Canal and the Haines area. You're looking at 8 to 13 inches with that winter storm warning. That's going to go from until 4 o'clock Saturday afternoon. So again, you've got a long duration possibility here of snow piling up, and a lot of this will be heavy and wet at times, and probably dealing with rain on top of that, so there's a potential for some snow loading issues there, so keep an eye on that. Around the Tye Inlet and Klondike Highway area, winter weather advisory, that'll also go until 4 o'clock on Saturday, looking at 4 to 8 inches in that region, some of the heaviest around the White Pass area. A winter weather advisory for areas southward toward Juneau and Gustavus, southward toward Sitka. Expect anywhere from about 7 to 9 inches of snow. That'll go through starting at 9 o'clock tonight and continue onward into the day tomorrow. And around Hyder, 4 to 10 inches of snow for your winter weather advisory there. So plenty of opportunities for new snow in Southeast, many areas under a winter weather advisory, and some of the northern regions around the Lynn Canal and the Haynesboro looking at a winter storm warning at this point. So enjoy that. Have a great weekend. Here's a look at the Bering Sea, and we are still watching that offshore flow come across the continent and sweep out into the Bering, mainly from east to west, and that does nothing but promote dry weather for you, blowing and drifting snow from sometimes around the Bering Strait and across some of the YK Delta regions and into Norton Sound, but we're also seeing that affect the storms out to the west. So as we saw just a moment ago, that area of low pressure working up into the western sections or the eastern sections of Russia and the western Bering Sea. You can see it's really stretching that moisture out. We've got more moisture south of the Aleutians, but really the main impact from anything coming up out of eastern Asia now is being shunted right back into eastern Asia. So that impressive ridge of high pressure up across the Chukchi Sea is really keeping a lot of that weather from moving into western Alaska at this point. Across the rest of the state, a lot of what you're seeing here, of course, is very cold ground. The active weather is right here across southeast. Here's our area of low pressure, and we've got several other pockets of low pressure across the Gulf. The Gulf itself has kind of re-energized itself and will continue to be active well through the weekend and into next week. Something that we need to keep an eye on here, we're not really seeing this show up in the weather models, is this wave of low pressure working past Atka. You probably had some snow showers out there today. This is, again, not showing up in the weather model, so it's kind of hard to track where this feature is going to go and just how strong it is. But it is kind of an active little storm, and this area of low pressure looks like it's tracking to the north and west. So hopefully in the next couple hours, the next round of weather models will get a little better taste of that and be able to tell us exactly what that means for places like Adak and for Shemya. But for right now, we're keeping an eye on that wave of low pressure that probably has some snow showers and some gusty winds with that, and likely some poor visibility just surrounding that area of low pressure. For most of the interior, clear and dry weather. We've had low clouds drop in across the coastal plain again. You can kind of see that southward movement right up until the Brooks Range summits here. Other than that, just some high clouds passing across the central and northern sections of the Bering Sea. And folks, that is about it. It has been a pretty clear and dry day for just about everyone, unless you've been in Annette with over an inch of precipitation today. It likely started to snow and quickly switched back over to rain. Rain and snow moving back into the central and southern parts of southeast slowly, and then pockets of heavier snowfall working their way northward. So plan on, again, a decent amount of precipitation across southeast as we're getting the weekend started for you. Otherwise, low clouds draped across the north and western sections of the Gulf. We've had a few snow showers close to Kodiak and out around the Pribilofs. The visibility dropped down for you for a little while today, but other than that, conditions should be improving. Some pockets of flurries and fog across the coastal plain. Other than that, dry and sunny weather for most of the interior. Should be a clear and dry night tonight. Cold for many places. Low pressure at 973 millibars. A southerly flow coming into the Dixon entrance in the southern and eastern parts of southeast Alaska. Snow in the north, including the Haynesboro and around Juneau. Up toward Yakutat. No advisories or warnings for you at this point, if you can believe that. Around Prince William Sound, south central, dry weather there. Areas of snow showers and most likely just low clouds and flurries and kind of a low deck of just a few snowflakes from time to time passing across the southern Bering and the Aleutians. We've got our area of low pressure there tracking to the north and west. That looks like it's going to fizzle out. The main feature across the North Pacific will be this 982 millibar low, mainly south of the chain. The winds are going to be pretty light across the chain through most of the weekend. Low pressure working into the central Gulf is pushing that frontal boundary a little bit closer to southeast. You'll notice most of the precipitation by late afternoon tomorrow turns right back over into rain with snow at some of the higher elevations, including White Pass, Chilkoot Pass, and out across the interior. Clear, dry sky there. Some pockets of stronger winds, probably closer to Norton Sound, Galena, and westward. Watch for a little bit of a breeze there to blow and drift that snow. Probably putting some extra snow on top of the historic Iditarod Trail there, so maybe obscuring that path from time to time. Look for some areas of fog and flurries across the Arctic coast, and the low clouds probably starting to overtop some of the Brooks Range there, so we'll see a few more clouds working southward of Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass. Watch for that to likely be MVFR tomorrow. Sunday's pass forecast will include mainly dry weather around the Alaska Range, so a bluebird day at least to start for Saturday. A few more clouds in the afternoon each day, but other than that, low pressure across the northern Gulf swings that frontal boundary into the Yukon and the British Columbia region, and that keeps a pretty healthy onshore flow going right into southeast. That means likely a decent chance for rainfall to continue through the weekend. And now a new player in town across the west and central Gulf will be the 961 millibar low by Sunday afternoon. That's south of Unalaska, south of the Alaska Peninsula. That's starting to bring moisture into the region, probably some stronger winds, at least some gales across the area by late Sunday. A 961 millibar low there will probably impact the rest of the Gulf as we head into early parts of next week. Meanwhile, dry weather, passing clouds across the interior and the west coast, breezy conditions for the Seward Peninsula, and low clouds and flurries for the coastal plain and the Arctic coast itself. So that's a look at your weekend weather. Let's take a look at what happened today across southeast. Low to mid 30s for most areas there. Sitka 39. There's Annette in the mid 40s today, again with some rainfall there around Haines and Skagway. Temps in the 20s and 30s, including areas around Juneau. Yakutat was 37. Prince William Sound low to mid 30s. The Cook Inlet region in the upper 20s. Talkeetna at 28. Glen Ellen 16. About the same across the hill there in Fairbanks. 10 in Healy. 15 in Greeley. Northway and Eagle in the single digits. Fort Yukon at 0. Arctic Village at 6 below. Anaktuvuk Pass 8 below. 17 below around Prudhoe Bay and Dead Horse. 7 below. And Barrow Wainwright 11 below. Kotzebue Sound temperatures mainly above 0 today. 23 in Nome. Around Galena, we saw temperatures at 11 today. McGrath was 18. A little bit further out toward Bethel at 20 degrees. Nunivak Island 15.9 in Savunga and Gamble. And out around southwest, around Bristol Bay, low to mid 30s. There's some areas reaching above freezing. Kodiak and most of the island was above freezing today. Sandpoint 43, Cold Bay and Falls Pass also in the 40s. 20s for the Pribilofs today, again with areas of snow. And 20s, 30s, and 40s for the Aleutians with Unalaska at 37. Overnight low temperatures in the interior will go well south of zero again, anywhere from 15 to about 30 below in some cases. The Arctic coast 20 to 30 below. Wainwright a little bit milder at 17 below, with Nome at 3 below. Galena looking at 16 below, McGrath 18 below, Bethel at 6 above, Bristol Bay in the teens and 20s, most of the peninsula also just a hair below freezing. Unalaska, you'll be very close to that mark. 29 in Kodiak, South Central in the teens and 20s, Homer and Seward a little bit milder, Prince William Sound around Cordova 23 degrees, and Southeast looking at temperatures mostly above freezing, but it's going to be pretty close. Coastal areas like Sitka, Annette, Ketchikan, and Craig probably in the lower 40s there, with highs tomorrow cruising back into the lower 40s. So there's that changeover from snow to rain occurring there in Southeast. You can see that clearly in the temperatures. 38 in Yakutat, Prince William Sound in the 20s, Seward around 35, Kodiak 36. In the interior, expect highs in the low to mid-teens. Around Fairbanks only 13, 3 in Fort Yukon. Anaktuvuk Pass looking at 15 below, the Arctic coast 10 to 20 below, Nome 13 above, Bethel and the Bristol Bay region in the teens and 20s, the Alaska Peninsula in the 30s, with Unalaska looking at 40 degrees. Flying weather then, expect widespread IFR across Southeast, of course, with the frontal boundary and snow and rain moving through. MVFR across the coastal plain and the coast itself. And for the Aleutians, widespread MVFR into the southern and central Bering Sea. Pockets of IFR also traveling through the eastern Aleutians and getting very close to the western sections of the chain. Your pass conditions, as we talked about, Anaktuvuk and Adigan Pass likely at MVFR through most of the daytime tomorrow. Lake Clark and Merrill Pass should be fine. Rainy Pass and Windy Pass should also be VFR conditions, and Bluebird days expected pretty much through the morning anyway. For Isabel Pass, you'll see a few more afternoon clouds around Mentasta as well, otherwise VFR. Tanita Pass should be VFR, and Portage Pass looking pretty good tomorrow, so smooth sailing there. And then there's Chilkoot and White Pass with snow and wind likely in the region. Chop and poor visibility should be expected. Freezing levels, you can see the surface freezing line pretty much in its same old spot around the Gulf of Alaska these days, south of the Pribilofs, and then snaking out across Attu Island and going north. Here's that warm and wet air. Not quite as much of it moving northward as what we were looking at yesterday, but still the elevated freezing lines between 2,000 and 4,000 feet. Icing potential, we expect that you'll have to find that above 4,000 feet and below 12,000 to get into anything that's occasional moderate there across some parts of Southeast, but a widespread area of light to isolated moderate is expected for Southeast and the central and northern parts of the Gulf. Also from the Pribilofs southward toward Unalaska, generally below 8,000 feet. At the jet stream level, we have a pretty pronounced trough dipping well into the central and northern Pacific and then making a hard jog northward, bringing with it the moisture that we're finding now across southeastern Alaska. Wind speeds there at jet stream level, 30,000 feet or so, between 120 and 135 knots, with high pressure firmly in control of eastern Asia and Siberia. We're getting that northeasterly flow that's inspiring that east to westerly flow across the rest of Alaska, and that's pushing that drier weather from the Yukon Valley all the way out to sea, and again also limiting the southward extent of the ice edge moving toward the Pribilofs. So good news there if you're around the Pribilofs or out to sea right now expecting to see the ice and you're not seeing that, that's probably why. Low pressure continues to drag that northerly flow out toward Bristol Bay as well, and then more of a northwesterly flow coming off the peninsula itself. So far, this has really limited the amount of storms we've seen in the Gulf, but as we were talking about now, the pattern is suggesting that the Gulf of Alaska is going to remain a lot more unsettled than it has in recent weeks. At 3,000 feet, we have our southwesterly flow moving into southeast Alaska. The wind speeds running around 30 to 40 knots or so, more of an east to westerly flow coming across the Alaska range itself from 10 to 20 knots, and northeasterly winds coming in from the Beaufort Seacoast around 10 to 15 knots and then picking up a little bit, crossing over the Brooks Range. Turbulence potential, we expect that with the frontal boundary moving through, the wind shifting and the jet stream overhead below 6,000 feet, you'll likely run into some occasional moderate turbulence there. Also some pockets across the Yukon Valley and out around the Kuskokwim Valley below 6,000 feet could reach toward occasional moderate. Around the Bering Strait, expect some light chop at least, and below 4,000 feet south of the Aleutians, occasional moderate should be possible there. Some areas closing in on the Cook Inlet and Susitna Valley should also expect at least light to isolated moderate chop as we get into tomorrow afternoon. That's a look at your aviation forecast. We'll be back with the Ice Edge and your marine weather here in just a few minutes.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor, and I'm filling in for Harry Keeling. I am also the Secretary of the Board of Directors for the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation. My day job is with the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, where I manage the aviation safety program. I have a co-board member with me this evening, and we are pleased to have Erin Hall-Mead on our show. She's the chair of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation Scholarship Committee. And Erin has done a fine job working with the Scholarship Committee and looking at applications for people who are interested in receiving scholarship awards. So, Erin, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Mary.
The Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation has several scholarships available. Can you tell us a little bit about them?
Absolutely. We have scholarships available for people who want to make aviation a career in Alaska. So we can award scholarships for people who want to be commercial pilots. We can award for people who want to go into A&P. Our entire focus is getting more commercial pilots for Alaska, because aviation is a big part of the way we move things around in this state.
That sounds like a great opportunity. If a person were interested in finding out more information or applying for one of these scholarships, where would they go?
Easiest thing to do is go on to our website. It is aasfonline.org, and I want to really emphasize the .org, because nowadays we all do .com. If you go to .com, you will find yourself on a Scandinavian website, and you will have no idea what they're saying because it is not in English. So, folks, it's .org.
And what are the requirements for people to apply for scholarships with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation?
Well, first of all, as I said earlier, we are looking for people who want to make commercial aviation their career. So our organization does not grant scholarships to people who want to get private pilot's licenses. We just assume if you want to do that, you'll find another way to do that. If you want to go forward, come to us. The application is online. It's really easy to fill out. It's just a 2-pager, wide-spaced. We want a copy of something that shows that you're an Alaska resident. So an Alaska driver's license, copy of your last couple PFD statements, anything like that. We ask for transcripts if you are in a program. They don't have to be official transcripts. You don't have to pay and get a sealed envelope sent to my committee. Just Xerox a copy of your transcripts. We want you to fill out the application, and here I'm going to plead, please fill it out in ink, not pencil, make it legible, and answer all the questions. Illegible or incomplete applications, we can't read them, we just send them back. Incomplete meaning you didn't send us a copy of your private pilot's license, you didn't send us proof of residency, you didn't send us your progress in a training program, we won't look at your application.
So, assuming a person does fill out the application correctly and they meet all the requirements, what does the scholarship committee look for in an application?
We look to see, first of all, that you have a private pilot's license. There are other scholarships out there to help you get that private if you need it, but we look to see that you've gone at least that far. We want you to tell us what you want to do with commercial aviation. We'd like a little information on your financial situation because some of this is needs-based. It's really important that you pay attention to our deadline because, Mary, our deadline has changed. There are 3 private pilot organizations in the state that grant scholarships: the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, the Alaska Airmen's Association, and the 99 Women's Pilots Association. Years ago, we all had different deadlines. We all came together and decided we would announce our scholarships at the same time and we would have the same deadline. So the deadline for all 3 organizations is the 31st of March. And I think our website is still not up to date. I think we have a date in May, but folks, I'm telling you, it's the 31st of March.
And if a person had already won a scholarship in the past, would they be eligible to apply again?
Absolutely. There's no reason you can't win scholarships more than 1 year at a time, particularly if you're going for advanced ratings, because we're happy to help you with each one of those ratings. In addition, you can win a scholarship from the Safety Foundation, and then you can turn around and win a scholarship from the Airmans, or if you're a girl, from the 99s. We're fine with that. We don't lock you out from one set of scholarships because you've won another set. We think the more scholarships you win, the better for you.
That's great information, and hopefully we'll get some great applications in, and it'll be a real competitive process this year.
I hope so. Our application pool has been getting bigger every year and better qualified. I don't have the web address for the Alaska Airmen or for the 99s, but they have some really nice high-dollar scholarships. So anybody who's interested in our scholarship should also go on the web, find the 99s, find the Alaska Airmen's Association. The Airmen are giving out $8,500 in scholarships. The 99s give out $3,500 in scholarships, and then there's the National 99s chapter, and they give scholarships also. And by the way, the 99s have a scholarship that will help you get your private pilot's license. So you can get financial help all the way through the process, and all the way through seriously advanced training, rotorcraft rating, external load. We fund all of those.
That's great information, Erin. Thank you so much for telling us about the scholarship opportunities.
You're welcome.
And folks, it's never too late to stop learning. So if you are interested in applying for a scholarship, please see our website, and until next time, fly safely.
And here's a look at today's Sea Ice Edge. As always, you can go to weather.gov/anchorage/ice.php to access the tools you need to build a map similar to this. We use Google Earth to build this in with the shape files, and you can see that out of Kuskokwim Bay through Nunivak Island out toward the St. Matthew Island waters, we're dealing with varying thicknesses of ice, but we've also got some open areas of water there south of the Kuskokwim Bay and into Bristol Bay. That fills back in a little bit, but plenty of space between the leading ice edge and St. Paul. Also some open areas around Cook Inlet, but still looking at decent concentration there, mainly north of Kenai into the northern parts of the inlet there. Here's a look at southeast. As you would expect with the front moving through, we've got varying directions of wind, a stronger southerly flow south of Sitka and offshore of Craig at 35 knots, so gales there, 16 to 17 foot seas. In the inner channels, 5 to 6 foot seas are expected with a southeasterly flow up to 30 knots and some higher gusts in the region, and a returning southerly wind for the Lynn Canal at 20 knots. Offshore flow coming out of Yakutat and Cape Fairweather and Icy Cape. In that area, 13-foot seas are expected. Those winds will likely turn to southwest as we get into Sunday, with that onshore flow following the front. Still looking at a south and southeasterly flow across the inner channels as that front is slowly working over the inside waters there across the southeastern part of the state. So higher gusts will continue, and again, snow becoming rain as we go into Saturday afternoon and Sunday for many areas. Northerly winds on the backside of the system will drain out a northeasterly flow with some higher gusts around the Copper River Basin. 15 knots on the inside of Prince William Sound, 25 knots on the outside, and that becomes more northerly the farther south and west you go across the Gulf. Northerlies outside of Kodiak at 35 knots with 10-foot seas. Northwesterlies inside Chillicothe Strait and 10 to 20-knot winds along the Cook Inlet from north to south. On Sunday, we get more of a westerly flow returning to the Gulf as low pressures up across the northeastern parts of the Gulf at this point. Northerlies inside Prince William Sound, westerlies outside with higher gusts still possible there, and winds inside Cook Inlet around 15 to 20 knots with seas running between 4 and 5 feet. The seas in the western Gulf anywhere from 8 to 10 feet there by the end of the weekend. Across the Alaska Peninsula, northeasterly winds inside Bristol Bay at 15 knots, 4-foot seas in the ice-free waters. Northerlies coming into places like Cold Bay and then Bering Sea side with a 4-foot sea. 15 to 20-knot winds on the Pacific side of the Alaska Peninsula with 8 to 10-foot seas expected there. By Sunday, we start to see a little bit of a change. We've got westerlies coming off the peninsula east of Chignik, 7-foot seas there. Northeasterlies continue inside Bristol Bay, and across the northern parts of the Alaska Peninsula, we're looking at an easterly flow developing with a 4-foot sea north of Cold Bay, and southeasterly winds onshore now coming into King Cove, and Sandpoint with a 6-foot sea on Sunday. Now for the Aleutians, variable flow and light winds across the eastern parts of the chain and the west. 10-knot winds are expected with 7 to 10-foot seas there, 8-foot seas on the eastern side. And then we get more of a northeasterly flow that becomes a little more variable there south of Adak, Atka, and Nikolsky with 9-foot seas expected on Saturday. And then Sunday, things kind of get set back into motion here. We get more of a northeasterly flow developing, 20 to 30-knot winds with a 6 to 10-foot sea. 9 to 12-foot seas there across Adak, Atka, and Nikolsky, and of course this should be 11-foot seas there, so we're just going to add a little 1 there for you for the rest of the map. And then out across the west, we have 15-knot winds coming in from the north with 7 to 8-foot seas. If I have to do this the rest of the show, my little finger's going to get tired. So time to switch the map, and there it goes. A north and northeasterly flow coming off of the YK Delta, 25 to 30 knots expected with 5-foot seas there out of the Kuskokwim Bay, and also across the Pribilof Islands there, St. Paul and St. George included, with heavy freezing spray still possible in many areas south of the ice edge. A 30-knot wind from the north and east with 9-foot seas around the St. Matthew Island waters, pretty much holding true to that as we get into Sunday, with 25 to 30-knot winds from the north and east all the way up and down the YK Delta and into the St. Lawrence Island waters. Northeasterlies continue around the Pribilofs with a 9-foot sea, and yeah, the freezing spray still there. A north and westerly flow across the Beaufort seacoast, 10 to 15 knots. The wind chill values again should drop off a little bit there thanks to the wind diminishing somewhat. North and northeasterly winds coming down the Chukchi seacoast into the Kotzebue Sound region at 15 to 25 knots. The winds diminish somewhat there on Sunday, and we keep our north and westerly flow. That diminishes as well to about 5 to 10 knots on Sunday. Recapping tonight's weather across southeast, that's the place to be if you're looking for snow, but snow will change to rain as we go through the rest of the weekend. Winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings posted. The heaviest of snow likely up across the northern parts of the Haines Borough, where some areas there could see as much as 13 inches of snow around Hyder, another 5 to 10 inches possible in your area, and snow will continue to fall around Juneau. Changing to rain, though, as we go through the weekend. Clear and dry weather for the interior, breezy in the west with blowing snow in some cases, and that's a look at your weekend weather. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.
It's never too early to set expectations and goals for your child's education. The UA College Savings Plan provides opportunities that can help you reach your educational savings goals. Save in Alaska. Study anywhere. There is more information available by calling 1-888, the number 4, and then Alaska. This message sponsored by the UA College Savings Plan.
If you are interested in serving on your local Federal Subsistence Regional Advisory Council, the deadline to apply is Friday, March 21st. The councils provide information and recommendations to the Federal Subsistence Board on subsistence hunting, trapping, and fishing. For more information on the advisory councils and how to apply, call 1-800-478-1456 or email subsistence@fws.gov. This message sponsored by U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service.